All right, the board will now convene to open session, report out from closed session. This meeting will be conducted completely online. Executive Order N29-20 supersedes prior instructions and prohibits a gathering space, even as social distancing guidelines are followed. Live streaming on YouTube will now begin. And the URL for the YouTube live streaming will be found on the Board of Education webpage starting now. If you would like to provide public comment, you may do so by utilizing the raise your hand option in Zoom. If you're calling by phone, dial *9 and wait to be called upon. Now, this will only be during the public comment section of the agenda. We've actually had two comments ahead of public comment, and we will report on those when we get to the public comment section. Additionally, I did want to remind the public that we will not be responding to questions posed by those making public comment this evening. Relative to closed session items 3.1 through 3.5, there was no action taken by the board. And so with that, I would actually like to take just a minute just to welcome our new student board member, Jessica Velasco, to the team. Welcome aboard, and hopefully you'll have a great experience with us on the board. So with that, why don't we do a roll call?
Core.
Here.
Canlis.
Here.
Chima. Chima. Wong.
Here.
Nishihira.
Here.
Velasco.
Here.
All right, for the record, I would like to show that Trustee Chima does appear to be in the call.
I'm
but
here.
She is muted.
I'm here.
Thank you.
I was muted.
Okay, great. All right. With that, then, moving on to item 5.2, may I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda?
So
I
moved.
move.
Second.
So Member Wong and then Member Chima. Roll call, please.
Core.
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Chima.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Nishihira.
Aye.
Velasco.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item 6.1, which is public comment, hearing of visitors for topics not on the agenda. Because of COVID-19 shelter in place, the district has provided the opportunity for community members to address the board via email at public comment at nhusc.k12.ca.us. Ahead of today's, prior to the deadline, we have two comments two emails, and they were both related to the concern of new CDC information regarding, and also around the COVID and hybrid in-person learning. Okay, so let's see if there are any members of the public that would like to speak for topics not on the agenda. Please raise your hand or dial *9 if you're dialed in. All right, seeing no public comments, we will then move on to 7.1. 7.1 is are there any community members that wish to address the board for topics that are on the agenda? Please raise your hand using Zoom's functionality or dial *9 if you were dialed in. Okay, there are no speakers. So now we will move on to 8.1. Which will be the presentation of the facilities master planning process. So with that, let's see what we got here. Looks like we have guests here, and let's see. I'm going to go ahead and you guys all have the ability to unmute yourselves and speak if you are ready.
This is Chris Bradley with SBA. I am ready.
All right, perfect.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully you'll see a PowerPoint here in a moment. It says screen sharing needs to be enabled.
Okay, sure. Hang on just a second.
Okay. All right, with any luck, you are looking at a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, that is correct.
Wonderful. So once again, I'm Chris Bradley with SVA Architects, and I'm one of the multiple member team with SVA Architects and our consultants that's working on your facility master plan. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to present to you tonight and talk a little bit about what we're doing and what we're going to be doing over the coming weeks. And we'll just talk briefly about the bigger team and then what a facility master plan is. And then we'll talk about who and what is involved in the process. And feel free, if there's any questions along the way, I'll gladly field them as we go, or we can wait to the end. Just real quick, SVA Architects, we are a architectural firm specializing in K-12 educational work. That's our bread and butter, and we have a tremendous amount of experience in this space. Here are a handful of our current clients that are in the Bay Area here close to us. And this is a part, but not all of the team that's working on your project. And so myself, Nathan Herrero, Velma Anello, Mel Tan, Robert Pleo, and Beatrice, in addition to Hancock Park and DeLong, who's our facilities eligibility consultant. They're the ones that are assisting us with doing the research on your eligibility for state funding. Guidepost, who is the security consultant, and we'll talk a little bit more about their role in just a bit. And then Sierra West Group, who is the cost estimator that's assisting us in providing costs for proposed projects that come out of this process. And once again, SVA is a K-12 firm with a tremendous amount of experience in K-12 architecture. So let's dive into the actual meat here. So what is a facilities master plan? I think at its heart, it's two things. It's a snapshot of where the district is today with respect to facilities, and it's a roadmap for where the district wants to go in the future with facilities. And pretty well everything else that comes out of the process is serving one of those two functions, if not both. And the facility master plan has a number of components that make up that snapshot and the roadmap, namely community outreach. And we'll be scheduling those in the coming days to work with the larger community and get their input. There's a needs assessment and equity study. And what we've been doing over the past several months is visiting each and every one of the sites along with some of our consultants and doing an eyes-on from a architectural perspective and really getting to know your sites and what's there, what needs to be done, essentially having a really wide-ranging inventory of the site in its current condition. And then we're also doing an equity study, understanding what the sites have relative to one another and looking to provide recommendations for providing equity between the sites. And there's also a demographics and enrollment projection so that we can better understand your needs, not just for today, but what you're going to need 5 years down the line with respect to the quantity of students and where they're going to be going and how they're going to be flowing through your schools. We're also going to be doing a capacity and utilization study for eligibility for the state funding, and that's the Hancock Park and DeLong component. And then we've been working with your staff and stakeholders on educational specifications that outline the desires and requirements for each of the educational spaces. So for example, we've got a detailed list of requirements for a classroom. So when we do modernization or new construction of a classroom, we have definitive criteria for that classroom in all its many components, whether we're talking about finishes, AV, IT, windows and daylighting, and those sorts of things. We have a very robust description of exactly what a classroom is supposed to be. And then facility standards, that's kind of the other piece of that, where we're working with the facilities department and maintenance and operations to define what the products and materials should be used for future projects. So everything from finding appropriate flooring that's low maintenance and high durability to roofing and that sort of thing. And then there's the master plan itself. That's the graphic display of the proposed projects that come out of this process. And so for each campus, there will be a colored site map that's annotated with essentially all that the district plans to do on those campuses by the end of this process. And lastly, there'll be a series of cost estimates that project out the likely costs for each of those proposed projects. And I'll add parenthetically, there's a security component to what we're doing as well. We have a security consultant that's in the process of going through to each of the sites and looking at all the security components of the site, whether it's fencing or cameras or just sort of vulnerabilities. And they're going to be reporting back. To that end, we'll be sending out a series of emails soliciting some additional information from the district here in the coming days to get some stakeholder input to provide sort of the other half of that equation from a day-to-day user standpoint. And then we'll talk about kind of the parts and pieces specifically. So there's a number of groups that will be involved in this and have been involved in it over the past months, namely yourselves. We're also forming a facility master plan committee, and I'll talk about their roles. And then there's what we're calling the district facility master plan team. Again, I'll talk about that. And then site stakeholders, community stakeholders, student representatives, and district consultants. And we'll talk about each of those in turn. So the facility master plan committee is really going to be casting the big picture vision for the facility master plan. They're the core group that is working with us directly to steer the ship, if you will. They're going to be providing high-level input, review, and guidance over the documents and process. And they're really intended to represent the larger stakeholder groups that are part of the district in the facility master plan committee itself. And it will be comprised of a broad range of district stakeholders. So there's representation across the strata of folks involved with the district. And presently those members are going to be the superintendent, facilities director, maintenance director, curriculum directors, principals from each school level, 2 board members, community and parent representatives, and student representatives. And then there's what we're calling the district facility master plan team. And this group is kind of our day-to-day working group. And they're the folks that we're communicating with throughout the process from start to finish. They're coordinating the meetings and information with all the stakeholder groups, ongoing involvement from day to day. They're the folks that we're working with to develop the district standards and the educational specifications, and then reaching out from there to a broader stakeholder group. And they're providing supplemental feedback and guidance along the way. And that group is comprised of district staff, CBO, director of facilities, director of M&O, and then there's additional staff that's been joining us as the particular topic that we're discussing that day comes up. So for example, we've been talking about educational specifications quite a bit. And so we've had folks from the district office and principals as well as the wider stakeholders involved in that specific conversation. And then we have site stakeholders. So we're working with the sites directly to get their sort of eyes on, feet on the ground knowledge of the sites and getting their direct input. And we're working through each campus to solicit user feedback. And that's involving site staff, parents, and student representatives. And then we're also going to be doing some broader, I'm sorry, that'll be done through Zoom during the quarantine. So we're running Zoom meetings right now. And then we have community stakeholder meetings as well. So those will be coming up. Invitations will be sent out to the community, and that's to really get the broader community's insight and input into the facility. So we'll be doing a series of community stakeholder meetings by Zoom as well. And so obviously this is kind of an unusual time for everyone. We will be leaning heavily on Zoom during this process. And we're also using some other technology to facilitate socially distanced work, namely some surveys and questionnaires that we're doing online. And then we're also using some software called Bluebeam that allows us to share and mark up documents together. And that's will be increasingly used as we get deeper into the process and start reviewing the documents that are coming out of the process. Any questions?
Question?
Yes.
Do you happen to have any timeline in your mind?
We're working on a final timeline right now, and we'll send that up through facilities and out to the wider audience. We're in the middle of scheduling all the remaining meetings right now.
Oh, what did you mean by when you say when we are in the process of having the remaining meetings? Can you explain a little bit better?
Sure. There's 19 meetings that we're scheduling right now, and those are the ones that will be finishing up the site stakeholder input, the facility master plan committee, and the community meetings. And so those will be sent out in the next few days as soon as we get confirmation that those dates are going to work for everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board members?
Yes, I have actually a couple of questions.
Okay, go ahead, Member Core.
Sure. So you had mentioned that most of these meetings will be conducted online via Zoom. And we talked about the equity piece. I wonder are we going to be eliminating some community members from participating in this process? Are there any opportunities for on-site, in-person meetings, obviously with social distancing and all of that kept in mind?
I think there is that opportunity. I would gladly do that if the district would like to pursue that.
Yeah, and I'd like to add on top of what Member Core had mentioned, and we had just got finished doing a facilities walkthrough of some stuff that's under construction. One of the things that I would like to advocate for as well is for, if possible, an opportunity to have these meetings in a space that is newly renovated. So as an example, we have some new spaces over at Pioneer that actually were just recently completed. To the extent that we are able to support that, I would love to have one of the things that I articulated to staff during that facilities walkthrough is that having that conversation in a space that could be used as a point of reference, which is like if you're in a space with 12-foot ceilings, a lot of natural light, a lot of space, like, it's a lot easier to imagine what the possibility is, as opposed to having things that are a little bit more abstract. So I mean, I think it would be helpful to have conversations in some of those learning spaces. That it actually helps with some of the ability to kind of imagine. There's that, and then I also do understand that there's going to be a need to also, in addition to having meetings in the space, also accommodate for people who can't make it to that side of town during that time of day or whatever it is, right? Sometimes it's kind of hard to get there. It looked like David Estrada, you have your hand up.
Yes, good evening. I just wanted to comment quickly on two things. First one, timing. Originally, Board Member Shima, we were trying to hit a December, January timeframe for finishing this. Everything slowed up with the COVID, and we found this very quickly going back to having to stay within the Zoom meetings, which was fine. Once we did want to meet with the larger facility management committee and also get their input of how we want to go further, meaning just as you suggested, that we should have these both in-house if that was possible, and again via Zoom. The equity part, we talked about going to the multiple sites if that's possible, but wanting to stay within the COVID-19 times, we're going to take shared comments from the administration in terms of what was the best way they felt comfortable with doing it. We don't want to compromise anybody. We do understand the 6 foot and trying to maintain that. So that will be discussed. We'll come back. We will surely communicate that to all and take the input. But our intent is to get feedback from everybody in this community. It's so important to share that with the high schools, the middle schools, and the elementary schools. We fully understand it. So we will be coming back. You will see some timelines being shared with you in terms of what we see as progressing through this. We just don't want to ram it through. We want to make sure it's timely and everybody gets a chance to have their input.
Okay, Member Core, you have your hand up. Thank you, David.
Yeah, thank you, David, for that information. Timeline was one of my questions as well. So yeah, keeping equity and obviously our pandemic in mind, I think a combination of online and in-person meetings would be more helpful and productive, I believe, considering how we as board felt when we were doing that tour of our facilities. And my other question is, since the last facilities master plan was done in 2013, I can't imagine everything from that plan may have been checked off. At what point do you roll that into your new plan, if at all?
There's 2 pieces to that. The short answer is the things that were determined as part of the last facility master plan are being looked at as part of this process. It's part of the needs assessment. Whether or not the projects identified back in 2013 that have not yet been done are still relevant and priorities for the district, that's part of the discussion that we'll be having. We'll be reviewing those individually. I suspect in most cases they would be, but that's part of the process, is to determine which identified projects from 2013 still ought to be moved forward to the 2020 facility master plan, and then where they sit in the ranked order of district's priorities.
Member Core, did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And my next question, I don't know, actually, I'm going to try to explain as much as I can to what I'm really trying to say is, I like the fact that this facilities master plan is really a initial process to kind of gather information as to what our district is going to be needing long-term, right? Obviously, you want to keep timeless facilities in mind, right? Secure campus, as you had mentioned, environmentally friendly buildings, all of that. As we were doing the facilities tour, we did notice that, certain schools just kind of got a remodel job versus a brand new building. So if those concerns come up again in the facilities master as you're soliciting feedback, do you then decide that that project that was done, just 2 years ago needs to be redone? Is that something that could be rolled into in this new plan? Is that something, if it does get rolled into the new plan, do you then outweigh, the cost or the timeline and the need and the priority for it?
If I understood your question correctly, if a project was completed recently, the facility master plan will reflect that that project was done. If there is a need associated with that completed project that is identified in this process that would be a change to that project, then we would identify that in that site's needs assessment and identify a project to make that happen. That said, I would expect that that is an unlikely scenario, but certainly that's one of the things that we're looking at as part of this process.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions I have.
Okay, David, David Estrada, you have your hand up. Would you like to speak? Can you unmute?
I was going to share the same comment that they will be looked at and evaluated. The board will be given the prioritizing once we list what's been shown to be what we view or what the architect views as needs to be addressed. It will come back to the board and you will actually make the final decision on what priorities. It could be that's something that was done recently, you might say, well, we want to go another direction based on shared views, shared comments. That will be made at that time. You have the opportunities to do that within the bounds of once that report is developed and you create those priorities. So we're not trying to not honor what was done in the master plan, but that is, if you will, a living document. So that's the reason we do these, is as time goes, your priorities may change based on that. So you'll have an opportunity to visit that. And that's what I want to assure you of.
Thank you.
Mr. Estrada, one of the questions that I have is, what is driving the overall timeline on this process? Is there some either state and or process related cadence that we have to keep? Is this that would help me understand how this is being prioritized in terms of timing.
My comment originally was we're looking to do it in December. That was based on a need that there was consideration of going out for additional bond. That is not driving this. Though I would tell you this, in order to go out for a bond, you're required to have a master plan as a part of it. But with that said, the recommendation from the state is always to have a master plan updated into normally a 5-year period. We were beyond that. So it's a normal process. So they normally, master plans normally take from, if you will, from 3 to 5 months to develop. We're still on that schedule. So
there's either a statutory and or a regulatory recommendation that it's every 5 years. We're at 7 years. We're at 7 years now, so we're beyond that. So that's what's kind of driving the timing there. That plus the fact that we, if the district wants to go out for a bond, we're going to need that in place before we do it, right?
That's correct. And part of the assessments is determining what building, what age group they are in terms of the last time that you were able to modernizing, and see what funds are available. Without a master plan in place, you cannot go after, if you will, any of those bonds if they ever do come from the state shared funds. That would also be a requirement for that as well. So there's a number of reasons why we push forward with master plans to keep them updated.
Okay, member Chima and then member Core.
So thank you, Mr. Estrada, to clear the need and purpose of this facilities master plan. So in the previous conversation, it gives the impression that our district is kind of, moving towards the bond election in 2022, and this is the need to do this thing. But I think it should be other way around, because there is a need, because it's more than 5 years, we need to have a live facility master plan. But also after we have the facilities master plan, then as a board, we will
I
weigh.
didn't hear any of that. I apologize.
How about
Can you
the
hear
other
me?
board members? Did you hear that? Are you hearing?
I heard it.
So after they come up with the facilities master plan, then it's up to the board to weigh in all the factors. And if there is a need to go for the bond, so it should not be other way around, that we are going for the bond, so we need to blah, blah, blah. We need to do these things. So no, it should not be that way. It should be, because it's a regular process. And after we develop the facilities master plan, if there is a need, then we go for the bond. I just want to clarify that.
Let me go back. That is correct, Board Member Shima. Yes, in fact, we're beyond the time right now to update just on a normal basis for a maintenance for what the conditions of the school right now. That is primary, the focus of this.
Yes.
The second part, yes, the bond is secondary. I agree, and would not disagree with any of that part. But we're beyond it right now. We're looking at seeing your repairs on these buildings. We are sorely in need of updates. And 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we should have been on it. For whatever reason, we're now back on trying to put that back on what those needs are. And your needs, I would say, have changed based on what we've seen, and not even withstanding the COVID, which is going to drive some changes in themselves. People are mentioning that their needs are a little bit different. Understood, but I agree what you just said about that. And
The audio is really bad, so maybe I could chime in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know where David is going to. And Ms. Chima, that is correct. Whether or not we are going for a bond, updating our learning environments and looking into them should be an ongoing process. And the
Yes.
ideal time is every 5 to 7 years. And we are in that, if not a little bit past, and therefore that's what we are doing right now. It's
Perfect.
not,
So
whether-
one more comment to add into that conversation is I have previously mentioned that because of the COVID evolving situations, nobody, at least I did not imagine that this pandemic will take that long. So the situation, they're still evolving. And I think our circumstances, like previously has been said, they have changed. So when we are exploring the need for the facilities, I think it's my proposal, but if the board agrees, then they can move forward. We also need to take a look at the some open spaces in case similar situations evolve. Because I have seen in Union City on H Street, there was a church on last Sunday. I saw the church was having their service outside in the chair, on the chairs, and they had just the canopy. So we need to keep that in mind in the future, that if we had to use the outdoor places, then we should have some kind of provision.
Okay.
We do expect that to come out of this process. We have very beautiful weather in the East Bay, and therefore, like I said, we expect that outdoor learning spaces to be part of the component to be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect. Member Core.
Yeah, and
Member-
I think just to kind of piggyback on Ms. Chima's comment, I think we saw part of that at Cyril's when we were doing the tour. There had some classes and with outdoor space that, you know, they wanted to utilize when weather or when activities allow them to. My comment, and it'll be a last comment on this, is, are we looking at this as a district-wide master plan, or will this just be the school site? So are we looking at our district office? Are we looking at the centralized enrollment space? Are we looking at our adult school? So would any of those be looked at in this master plan, or will this be strictly our 11 sites?
This is a comprehensive district-wide master plan. We're looking at all facilities, not just our school site campuses.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions regarding the process of the master plan, which is what we're talking about?
I think this is exciting, especially since the three of us have not been part of this. You know, when we are doing the board member selection, I would love to kind of possibly be part of it.
Awesome. Okay, great. Oh, Member Canlis.
Yes, so as we look at this master plan, and some of it started in 2013, do we update in case there are needs, because our needs now are different from 2013. I'm assuming that the master plan then would need to be revised according to our needs. So does this group then revise it according to the needs, and of course the cost will change at that point?
Let me comment on that. Yes, so they will forecast, once you put the needs together, or once they decide a priority, there'll be cost assessments provided. And those will be actually rated future as well, costs associated down the line. They'll forecast those costs as well. So absolutely.
And then my second question is, obviously, because the cost would be changing with what we have, with the current bond we have right now, will be able to afford it, or do we need another bond in order to complete? Because things are different now and the needs are probably much larger than before.
I can address that. The reality that we all face is the needs will always be 3 or 4
Yes.
times greater than our ability to raise local bonds. And therefore the prioritization process is critical, and the board review and approval process is critical, and the community engagement process is critical, because we won't be, I mean, the truth of the matter is we're not going to be able to do everything that will be identified in that plan. But that is when that layer of review and engagement is super, super critical in this process.
Got it. And I'm assuming there will be criteria regarding how we prioritize at that point. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no further questions, I would like to thank the architects for coming out. I'd like to thank the staff for the preparation of the process, and I'm looking forward to moving forward in the coming months.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Then moving on to 9.1. 9.1 is the required quarterly reports regarding complaints filed under the Williams complaints procedure. So for 2019-2020. For quarter 4, for the 4th quarter, there were no reports. And then moving on to 9.2, the required quarterly reports regarding complaints filed under the Williams Complaint Procedure 2021 first quarter. Also, there were no reports. So moving on to 9.3, which is items from the board and superintendent. If you have something that you'd like to share, please raise your hand, or we could just take turns as well.
I just want to welcome our student board member, Jessica. Welcome to the team.
Thank
I wish
you.
the circumstances were different when we were meeting in person. You know, it's always a different energy, but nonetheless, happy to see you.
Thank you too. I'll just start with my notes then.
Okay, sure.
So first of all, our overall school theme is Disneyland theme parks. We had our cricket recently, like a few weeks ago, and we did it virtually, of course, through the new social media TikTok. And right now we have our ongoing Spirit Week. Today is tie-dye, so hence my tie-dye shirt. And we're really working hard on making virtual activities because of COVID. And we recently had an escape room through Google Forms, and it was like Wonderland themed, and we had a pretty good turnout. And we're discussing of implementing spirit points, which I know some of the middle schools do, in which students will win prizes at the end of the year, and it's going to be a class competition. And this will be tracked through the participation of events. And so we kind of like beta it, or like did a pilot through the escape room, and we gave spirit points just to introduce it to the students. As for like ASB and leadership, we're working on creating a student survey and making sure it's promoted properly so students actually send out answers. Me personally, I am working on student advisory board. If you remember what that is. My predecessors did do that, and I am sending applications hopefully next week. So that's very fun. And we're also working on cult health. Previously, we've done flu shots, and we will still continue to do that. But we're also going to expand it onto mental health and giving out resources and talking about these serious issues towards students. And our newest project is so far called Cult Buddy. So it was brought into our attention that we need to build a bigger community and social interaction, especially with COVID. So we made this program to let high school students teach these activities or lead classes to elementary kids to build a bigger, a stronger bond. So so far we have like classes like pen pals or like book clubs or like arts and crafts. So we're working on that, and our target lunch is hopefully next month. And I just wanted to say, stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, who is next? All right, if you guys don't start talking or raising your hands, then I'll go.
I think Member
okay, there
Chima
you
had her hand up, and then I'll go after her.
All right, Member Chima.
I just want to say thank you to our staff. With this COVID situation, parents, they have expressed that the technology or classroom instructions, they are much, much better in this fall than it was in March. So parents, they value the instruction and the teachers' preparation, and the whole technology integration is working better. So they are happy. I am happy to report that from some parents, they said that.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, that's it. Okay, so Member Canlis.
Yes, there has been a lot of concerns about possible reopening in the month of October from parents, students, and teachers. So I was going to ask our superintendent to update with what you know right now, and I know we will get more later. So just so we could calm their nerves a little bit, so they're not panicking and thinking that it might open in the next 2 weeks, because they're looking at the October 13 that was announced from the county. So it's just good for them to hear that it's not happening on October 13.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, member Core.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to repeat what Ms. Chima and Ms. Canlis said, but I think those are possibly the points that Dr. Thompson can address in his Friday Facebook Live. I think those are critical. And another thing that I heard and I shared with John already is that, you know, there's a lot of good feedback on the communication that's going out from the district. So I just want to commend our district for really putting all that information out in front of the community members. It's not necessarily trying to scare them, but it's just keeping them in the loop and preparing them for what steps are going to be, you know, coming up next. You know, I just want to, it was nice to hear a student voice today. I think it's been missing for so long. So really, Jessica, thank you for being here. And I hope, you know, you will continue to address and tell us what's happening. I'm so proud to hear that you guys are taking the whole mental health aspects and also the lack of socialization. What are you guys doing as students to not only help yourself, but help the younger kids as well? So that's really nice to hear. I commend you guys, and please keep us updated on that. I would love to hear what's been working, what hasn't been, where can we as board members help you guys there, and even the staff. So keep us abreast and let us know where we can help. So it was really nice to hear from you and all the activities that are happening virtually.
Thank you so much for letting me attend and speak too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, then I guess I'll start talking. I wanted to welcome also Member Velasco. Very excited to have you here. Student voice, as you know, is incredibly important. And in observation of that, I did want to say that I wanted to commend the staff on the work that you guys are over delivering in terms of we brought it up to the board. The board brought it up to the staff's attention probably less than a year ago about the state of the James Logan bathrooms. I'm very, very happy to learn that we're not doing a full renovation, but we're doing some of the basics, which are around like replacing the fixtures and the walls and things like that. So the point is your voice matters. The student's voice matters, and so please just keep them coming, because when we hear student voice, that's when we can actually get things done for the students. In that, I did want to also say I'm not going to rehash everything that everybody's talked about with regard to the COVID reopening, but I did want to address a particular group of concerned parents from the NHUSD parent Facebook group. I just want to let everybody who mentions that, because there were some posts on the group this week asking if the board is how can the board get access to to the stuff that is on the Facebook parents, the NHUSD parents group. What I will say for myself is I do read it all. And so the reason why I personally make it a point not to reply back is because I can't speak for the entire board. So I don't engage on that group, but we are watching, and so like if there are concerns that we're not hearing that, I think it's important to note that we are listening and we are hearing. You can contact any of the board members individually, if you want to speak specifically around any of that. That's what the board is here for. And then kind of in keeping with that, I've been talking with some stakeholders in some of our neighborhoods, and there is an appetite to consider a farmer's market somewhere in the Dakota neighborhood. They're specifically talking about the Dakota school over there. Now, I know that we've just recently have been contracting that out to Seneca. But I'm wondering, we do have, I think, still some joint, some joint use on it. But what I'd like to do, and I'll be bringing this up as a part of our consensus, is I would just love to just kind of understand, what that actually looks like. If that's even something possible, what are the risks? What are the risk mitigation strategies? Is that something that we can do? How easy or hard is it? But there is a group of people who would love to have a farmer's market for nice, healthy vegetables on this side of town. So I did want to at least bring that up. That was all the things that I personally had. And I think everybody went except for Superintendent Thompson.
All right, thank you. Well, to hit on Trustee Conless's point, I'm using every venue I have to kind of reinforce and reassure folks that we are not rushing headlong into reopening our schools. The health order that came out last week, it gives permission for districts to reopen schools if they meet all of the criteria that they designate as early as the 13th of October for elementary schools. It is not a requirement. It is just simply the first opportunity that schools could possibly consider doing it. Now, here's the very brief, and I will address this in the Facebook Live event because the comments that I've received in the link that we sent out, a lot of them are all about this. But the process entails us requires us to get the county checklist, which we haven't seen yet, to review it, to come up with a local plan that addresses all of the areas in the checklist. Again, we have not even seen this checklist yet. And given that the 13th is a little over a week away, we're not going to be reopening our schools on the 13th. Don't panic. Then once we get the checklist and we start to outline a plan, we will submit it for public review. We'll have it probably air it at a board meeting or at something like that. We'll see, depending on what's required in the plan. And then we'll have the board approve that plan. And then it goes back to the Alameda County Public Health Department where they have to accept it, meaning they have to review it and make sure that we've met all the criteria. And only after that would we actually have permission to open up our elementary schools, not middle or high school. That process I just described is probably going to take weeks at best, because again, we haven't even seen the checklist yet. And we have to take all of those steps moving forward. And we still have a lot of logistics to work out. We haven't even got training on contact tracing yet. That's something that we have to be able to have folks to do and to be trained. That's just one small example. Anyway, it's going to be quite a while before, even if we were pushing it and rushing to do it, it would be quite a while, a number of weeks, if not months, before we would be able to even consider reopening. So don't worry, relax. It's not happening anytime soon. It can't. But we will be exploring all of the steps in the process in the next few weeks coming up. I don't know when we're going to get the checklist. I assume it's going to be soon, and at least we can start the process of looking to see how feasible it really is. Anyway, there's that. So I know there are some parents that would really like us to reopen, particularly those with younger kids. So I apologize. It's going to be a long process before we get there. But when you hear the governor talk about things like prepare for the surge, really makes you take a step back and think about making sure that if we're going to do this, we better do it right. And we certainly wouldn't want to do it in the middle of a surge. But anyway, that is one comment. So I do want to highlight a couple positive things that have been happening. There's a lot of work going on across our district. Our facilities department has been working at all of our sites to try to make upgrades. Bond construction is rapidly moving along in a lot of areas. Visible examples are Searles and Pioneer. Logan, for example, we have our maintenance crew has revamped and upgraded 43 bathrooms over there. So, and they look great. There's new paint, there's all kinds of things. So I will say that when we can welcome our kids back, they're going to be coming back to some nice looking facilities, and I'm excited about that. All right, so there's that. And let's see. I want to thank all of you for putting up with the state's crazy requirements around attendance. We rolled out a new version of how we keep track of attendance and participation. Just so you know, we didn't make up these rules, and we have been working really hard to try to make this as easy as possible. And you can see that what we have in place now for those of you that are living it as parents, students, or teachers, even as easy as we can possibly make it, it's still cumbersome. And we just, we're stuck with the rules that we were given by the state on that one. Good intentions, not great understanding of how schools work. And finally, I'd like to thank Annette and David for the work on the master plan. Just a reminder, this is squarely in goal 5. I mean, this is as our strategic plan is moving forward in the first year. One of our plans is to identify our facilities need, and that is based on our 5th goal in our strategic plan. So there's that. And welcome to new student board member. It's great to have you here. You might not be our first student board member, but you are absolutely, your claim to fame, the first digital school board member we've ever had.
I'm very honored.
And I really hope you're the last one too this way.
Yeah.
Okay, that's for me.
All right. So then moving on, seeing no further hands, we're going to move on to board committee reports. So 10.1, the report from the Budget and Finance Committee.
There's nothing new to report.
Okay. All right. That was easy. Moving on to 10.2 is the Communication and Advocacy Committee. Member Cora and I attended a meeting where we had a few things. We released, we finally approved and released our survey to go out to families that's been fielded over the last couple of weeks to get an idea on website content, specifically the types of website content, and also where there are gaps, where people, what are the things that people can't find that they're looking for. So that's going to hopefully give us some idea there. We had a very, very robust discussion around technology infrastructure, and how all of that actually fits together. And then the other, we continued talking about how we can deliver on our 2021 goals, and how we can hit those and create some, create good, distilled, clear communication channels. One of the things that I wanted to bring up for discussion, and this is with, Superintendent Thompson, as well as the entire board. One of the inputs that went into the communication and advocacy work stream was an assessment and an audit of all of our social media properties, as well as our outbound communication properties, as well as some guiding principles. The communication and advocacy group presented to this board around some of the guiding principles around our communication. What I would like to do is, so that we could be completely transparent with our public, is to make that Miro board, the board that we've been using to kind of, to have these discussions and capture all the feedback. I would love to be able to make that, available to the public, so that they can actually see the thinking and the framework that has gone into the discussions that we had, and more specifically how that lines up to any types of technology support structures that we're going to be needing in the future. So if there's no objections, I would love to be able to make that available to the public, because I think that there's a lot of really good, rich information in there. And then our next committee meeting is not written in my notes. Lori, do you happen to have the date for the next communication advocacy meeting, or Sharon?
Hang on, I think I have it in my calendar. You know what? I wasn't thinking about that.
I usually jot it down, but it's in my notes here. I just got to find it. I just want to report it out. I believe it's
my notes. Lori normally books
On
it.
the 22nd of October.
October 22nd. Thank you, Member Core.
Perfect.
Our next meeting is October 22nd. All right, that is the report out for communication and advocacy. Superintendent Thompson, is there anything I missed?
No, I think you hit the high points.
Okay, great.
President Nishihira, I would ask that we give access. I don't know if Member Chima and Member Canlis and Member Wong has access to the Miro board.
Most certainly, I will send it. It's it's a web-based page, but it's not like it will require a little bit of like navigation. It's not like up and it's you're gonna have to pan right. It's basically like a big infinite canvas that you're just gonna have to kind of navigate around to just kind of see all the different points. But I will make that available to everybody on the team, and then it would be a really good, like I said, it'd be a really good basis for people understanding how we got to some of the decisions that we did. But I'll make sure that everybody has access to it. Okay, then that's it for 10.2. A second. Moving on to 10.3, other committees. Does anybody have, okay, Member Canlis.
Yeah, October 8th, that's this Thursday at 7, we have a, I'm sorry, 6 o'clock, we have a AXPA meeting, and the topic is on hybrid and school reopening, which is very timely. The presentation is being done by Ingrid Robertson from the Alameda County Office of Education. So it would be a good opportunity to hear more about that. And we also have the Alameda County School Board President Aisha Knowles and CSBA President Sinanen to attend and add on things as needed, depending on your questions. I also would like to humbly report that CSBA has appointed me as a delegate. I was surprised by that. Next meeting for AXPA would be in January, and that would be given by Dennis Meyer, CSBA. It would be on budget. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Member Wong.
Yes, and the last Tuesdays, and I participated the SELPA, the subcommittee, the meetings, and well, it's very long meetings. So basically, we talk about special education, the budget, and I just have one information either that our board members know, and the key thing is this year the ADA, I mean the funding rate is a 625 per ADAs, which is lower than the last year. We call it last year's is 645. So, and the special educations and the funding get lower and lower each year, and the number get increased. And well, I believe that they have a copy, so they're going to submit it to the board to approve. And there's so many information, you guys can read the detail. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Member Wong. Any other report outs for other committees? Okay, Member Chima.
So Mission Valley ROP's meeting is coming up. So we are also kind of in the planning how to bring the students in the same scenario like we are doing it for our district. And also we are working on another grant through the workforce development for the more on practical ways to engage our students.
Okay. Thank you, Member Chima. All right, seeing no further hands up, I think we will, oh, nope. Sorry, there's one.
No, I was trying to.
Good. Okay. All right, with no further report outs, we're going to move on to action items. 11.1, Member Canlis, I don't want to put you on the spot, but since you are a previous principal, are you in a position where you can read the resolution? If not, I can read it. Oh, you're muted.
Member Canlis, you're muted.
You're still muted if you're talking.
All right, got it. New Haven Unified School District, California Week of School Administration, Administrator, Resolution number 008-2021. Whereas leadership matters for California's public education system and the more than 6 million students it serves. And whereas school administrators are passionate, lifelong learners who believe in the value of quality public education. And whereas the title school administrator is a broad term used to define many education leaders, post superintendents, assistant superintendents, principals, assistant principals, executive directors, director coordinators, special education and adult education leaders, curriculum and assessment leaders, school business officials, classified education leaders, and other school district employees are considered administrators. And whereas providing quality service for the student success is paramount for profession, and whereas most school administrators began their careers as teachers, the average administrators has served in public education for more than a decade. Most of California superintendents have served in education for more than 20 years. Such experience is beneficial in their work to effectively and efficiently lead public education and improve student achievement. And whereas public schools operate with lean management systems across the nation, public schools employ fewer managers and supervisors than most public and private sector industries, including transportation, food, service, manufacturing, utilities, construction, publishing, and public administration. And whereas school leaders depend on a network of support from school communities, fellow administrators, teachers, parents, students, business, community members, board trustees, colleges and universities, community and faith-based organizations, elected officials, and district and county staff and resources to promote ongoing student achievement and school success. And whereas research shows great schools are led by great principals and great districts are led by great superintendents. These site leaders are supported by extensive administrative networks throughout the state. And whereas the state of California has declared the second full week of October as the week of the school administrator in Education Code 44015, 5.1, and whereas the future of California public education system depends upon the quality of its leadership, now therefore be it resolved by the New Haven East 5 School District that all school leaders be commended for the contributions they make to the successful student achievement.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
No problem.
Okay. All right. With that, may I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 008-2021, California Week of the School Administrator?
So
No
moved.
comments
Administrator.
section? No comments?
During the discussion. Let's get the motion up and then we can make comments during the discussion. So may I
moved.
have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Member Canlis and Member Chima. Discussion
move.
now. Member Chima.
Just want to say thank you, formally acknowledge our superintendent and all of the administration staff. I think it's after a long time that we have this resolution in our board agendas, and I did read it carefully, and it's good to educate ourselves. Sometimes I think it is considered the resolution, they're just like just resolutions, but it does make a difference when we have this resolution in and people, they read it and they learn more about how we do our jobs. Thank you. We appreciate your services.
Okay, Member Canlis.
Yeah, I too would like to emphasize our appreciation and thank you to all the, I actually call them the middle managers. And sometimes they hear so many negatives and it's really hard being in that position. So it's good that we recognize what they do because they have a difficult job. So thank you.
Sure. All right, any further comments? Okay, roll call. Oh, sorry.
Right.
Superintendent Thompson, please.
You know, it's just real quickly. I normally Axa always does this week of the school administrator this time of year, and it always seems strange because we usually do our recognitions at the end of the year for other employee groups. But I will say that this year, the administrative team that we have, everything that we do that looks good is because of our teachers and then with under the guidance and help of our principals, and they are really working. And I don't want to leave out CSEA either, but this is talking about administrators. The work they've done to help lead their sites has really been above and beyond what you would normally expect throughout this whole period from March forward. And I can't be more proud of them. And so I just want to thank them for all of their hard work, both at the site level, family center, district office. It's been a team effort to get here. And this kind of experience really tests people, and you see who they're made of. And I got to tell you, I have been nothing but impressed with it, with our administrators across the board. And thank you, everybody.
You're here for sure. Okay, seeing no further discussion, roll call, please.
Orr,
Aye.
Canlis,
Aye.
Chima,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Nishihira,
Aye.
Velasco.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to 11.2. May I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 007-2021, approval of membership to the district's Measure M Citizens Oversight Committee.
So moved.
I move. Second.
Okay, so member Canlis and then member Wong. Discussion?
Comments?
Yes. Member
So
Chima.
I did talk to Anath Heldman earlier today about the appointment of these members, and she explained me the process. The good thing is that we are still accepting more members to serve on this committee. I think it is a way to engage more of our community members in the process. So I'm asking fellow board members or anybody from the public who is in this meeting that if they have time, and if they want to serve on this committee, they can still apply for that and be a part of the district decision making.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Member Core.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask if somebody can describe or explain to us what is the role and responsibilities of this committee. We're going to be looking to, obviously we're assembling a new committee, and it seems like we're also soliciting more community members to take part in that. Can somebody explain the exact role and responsibilities of this?
Anath should do it, or I can do it. Is Anath here?
Yes,
Yeah.
I had to remember to unmute myself. Good evening once again. So our last measure, and most of our bond measures actually were passed under the guise of Prop 39, and therefore we have an oversight committee. Essentially, this is like a, how do you call it? Like a litmus test in terms of the expenditures and the projects that are moving forward. Making sure that they are in accordance to the ballot when we passed the ballot in 2014. This committee actually do not make determination in terms of the prioritization of the projects. That's still ultimately the Board of Education decision. But it is making sure that we are spending the money in accordance to Prop 39, in accordance to what the commitments that we made to our community. And also they have a responsibility to put together a report so that it engages the community. A few of the meetings that we held actually with the committee, it kind of dovetails to what I heard earlier, is we actually hold them in the facilities that we've improved. One of the meetings that we had was actually at the Itliong Veracruz Future Ready classroom. So it's a way, they serve as a conduit to the things that we are doing as we move along in implementing the bond program.
If I may add a little bit to that is, since it's public's money, we are spending it, and public has the right to oversee it. So it gives that opportunity to the public to participate and see how their tax dollars are being spent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have a motion and a second on the table, and so we need, okay, no further discussion. Roll call, please.
Boer,
Aye.
Canlis,
Aye.
Chima,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Nishihira,
Aye.
Velasco.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to 11.3. May I have a motion and a second to ratify the attached offer of dedication and declaration of conditions dedicating the newly constructed sidewalk drop-off zone to the City of Union City?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so Member Canlis and Member Chima. Discussion.
Comments.
Okay, Member Chima.
I have requested it before, but I'm requesting it again. If you can have just one page of the layout to see for the board members or the people, community members who are reading our agenda items, that the exact location of this project. Because we are moving the sidewalk. It can impact the neighborhood communities. So it's always good to have, if we have, I know all projects, they have the cover sheet to display the location and preliminary plan. If you, in the future, if you can add those one-page plans in the board agenda item, just a request from the staff.
All right. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table. Seeing no further discussion, roll call, please.
Boer,
Aye.
Canlis,
Aye.
Chima,
Aye.
Wong, Nishihira,
Aye.
Velasco.
Hang on.
Aye.
Okay, Member Wong. Member Wong, did you record your vote?
I think he is static.
He's
His
frozen.
screen is, yeah, frozen, looks like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, I think we all heard an aye there. Okay.
Technology.
Okay, great. Moving on to 11.4. May I have a motion and a second to ratify the agreement with Dropbox Hello Sign for the district e-signature platform?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Member Canlis and Member Chima. Discussion.
Comments.
Go ahead, Member Chima.
So I did had conversation with our CBO, Anat Heldman, about the cost, because it was $22,000 and it's only 50% and it's only for 1 year. So we had the conversation how we will be sustaining this cost in the future, and if we need 100 licenses for this cost. So she explained it to me, and I'm satisfied with her explanation. And the good part is that she also mentioned, Anat Heldman, that is they are doing it as a like a pilot run for 1 year only. So by that time, there might be more products, and they will compare the cost and products, how our experience is. So this process or this service will make our delivery more efficient. She explains that how our field trips, I hope there are field trips in the James Logan High School. And sometimes, you know, they have to have the paperwork signed from the students and parents. For that reason, they need that many licenses. So I'm good to go. We had a good information. It's a good item to try. And also in the Mission Valley ROP, we are also exploring the similar service because of the situation we are in pandemic. So we will compare the service. They have a different vendor, and we will compare after 1 year that which service is better. Thank you.
Okay, Member Kaur.
Yeah, my questions were along the same line as Ms. Chima, so I'm hoping that Ms. Heldman can address some of those, I guess, conversations that she had with Ms. Chima, so we can also get the answers to those. Particularly, I think the cost of it being 50% this time, I mean, this is the first I'm hearing that this could potentially be a pilot program. If it's going to be an ongoing service that we're looking to get for our district, it's not a bad idea to go digital wherever we can. So we're saving cost on whether it's on paper or whether it's, efficiency and timeline. So just I want to hear what the thought process is. And if it is going to go past 1 year, where is that 40,000 going to be coming from?
Hello.
And that maybe I can frame it for you to start with, and then I'll turn it over to you. And then we have Frank here too to handle the technical side. But as I think all of you know, society, businesses are moving towards digital documentation, digital documents, digital signatures, and this is our, we have to, if we're going to continue to move forward, this is just a step that's going to come sooner or later. So I'm not looking at this as a pilot project. This is something that certainly we can reevaluate how it's being used, how the program operates for us. But one way or the other, we need to move into the digital sphere here. It works as planned. It'll generate significant operational efficiency. There's a cost savings with that. But the hard part is quantifying that. So it's really easy to look at the dollar amount that you see laid out. What's hard to measure and put a dollar sign to is the operational efficiency that's created that goes along with it. Aside from the fact that, this is it reminds me of fax machines. Has anybody used a fax machine when's the last time anybody used a fax machine? This is the way that signatures and document processing is going. And we can either embrace it and move forward with it, and there's a cost, or, we will at some point. So I just want to frame the discussion that way. But I think the discussion about cost, ongoing cost, whether this is the right program, technical details, it's a good conversation. But again, one way or the other, we're going to be going in this way sooner or later.
No, I don't disagree with that. I think the 100 licenses that came with this packet, and I think Member Chima just talked about it being easier for parents to also sign documents. I don't know how, does that also give capability to parents to also use this program?
Yes.
Or is this for our district employees?
No, this is actually one of the components that we looked for when we were vetting. We actually vetted 3 vendors. This allows one-to-many. That type of structure. We collected information from all of our administrators in terms of what would they use this for. And there are a lot of documents that we are still pushing paper back and forth in the current time. And this would be very helpful, of course, with IEPs, independent study contracts. Every department has a need for something like this. The last couple of months actually even highlighted what those are. It would have been great if we had this sooner. But moving forward, I see it this way, kind of echoing what Superintendent Thompson said. We want our learning environment to be future ready. This is also the way to advance our processes and operations. And I don't hear disagreement on that. In terms of the number of licenses, that's part of the data gathering that we did. And quite frankly, a lot of these initiators are administrators, and you're talking about things that need parent signatures. When I say one-to-many, that's actually one of the things that we looked for, one of the criteria, so that we are not limited. We all know, at least what we found or what we heard from our administrators, there are some papers that need to go to multiple layers of signature. So I hope that answered the question, but those are the things that we included in the criteria when we invited vendors to provide us an information session and tryouts.
Yes, it does. And I think I just wanted to understand, obviously, the source of payment or source for this particular item is the loss mitigation, learning loss mitigation funding. And I'm assuming it's going to go back to a general fund once this comes December.
Yes, we can pick up the tab for this for year 1. The contract before you or the item before you is for 1 year only. So COVID funds can pick up the tab for year 1. Moving forward, after that year 1, we would have the ability or the opportunity to assess this And especially if it makes a difference in terms of the work and the efficiencies in different areas, then it's something that would be absorbed in the general fund. While we can't quantify any of those efficiencies, there would be things that would be reassessed down the road.
All right, so I do, oh, Member Cordy, you still have another question? Or your hand's still up? Okay, got it. I have like 5 questions, but I'm probably not going to ask all of them because some of them have been addressed here. But one question, so when we looked at like the number of the research that you guys did, the due diligence to figure out like all of your signature requiring needs, the question that I have was, are every single one of those scenarios signature required? In other words, or have we always just done it that way? If you look at that list, are there things that are just kind of optional that don't need a full signature? Or is like everything that was on that list, it needs a signature?
I wouldn't say that those require, well, let me put it that way. In terms of an electronic signature versus a wet signature, is that your question? But
no, that wasn't really my question. My question was really like, have we just gotten used to signing things because we've always signed them?
Oh no.
Or is it like, okay, well, it was, you know, or are all of these things that we've identified, are they legally obliged to have a signature, whether electronic or wet?
These forms, and I'm actually looking at the list right now, they are required. These are things that are audit required in all of the different oversight agencies, employment documents and all of that. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Got it. So there's no nice to haves. Those are all signatures that need to be done.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
We're
all right.
oriented.
Okay, and then I know that it says it has Google Apps integration, but I just wanted to verify that our employees will be using their G Suite accounts and won't have to create and manage another account. That's correct, right?
I would like to kick that on to Frank. I believe he's online.
Yes.
Hi, Board President Nishihara, board members, that is correct. And I was quite surprised about this because HelloSign is a Dropbox property and Dropbox is a direct competitor to Google Drive. Yeah. But surprisingly, they didn't once try to push Dropbox on us at all. And their integration with Google is spot on. As you mentioned, our employees can basically click sign in with Google. They have access to the HelloSign product. Their integration with Google is better than the other 2 competitors we had. And in fact, it even puts it creates a folder within each person's Google Drive for their HelloSign documents and templates as part of the login process. So, I mean, it's really very well integrated.
Okay, great. So so we don't have, like, I want to make sure that we're not having to have people shuffle things between a Dropbox folder structure and a Google Drive folder structure. That's good. And that
was a prerequisite for us.
Okay, and no new accounts. Okay, you talked about the pilot phase, and you also talked about the fact that it'll be twice as much next year. So you covered you covered all of my questions. Member Chima, you still have a question.
To add on to your comment, so when we are creating this new platforms and dealing with the new technologies, I think your intention was to also, in the process, I know we trust you guys, our employees. We are thankful for your services, and so it gives us an opportunity to find or clean if we have any redundancies. That's what I think the intent of the conversation was. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Member Chima. Mr. Delapo, did you have anything else you wanted to add? You look like I might have cut you off.
No.
Okay, got it. All right. With that, as a reminder, we have a motion and a second to approve this. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Gore.
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Chima.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Nishihira.
Aye.
Velasco.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so moving on to 11.5. soon as my computer decides to update. Okay. May I have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of licenses from Happy Numbers 2021 for Hillview Crest Elementary?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Member Canlis and then Member Chima. Discussion? Okay.
I,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry. Go ahead, Member Corr.
Yeah, just a comment. So I noticed that Happy Numbers is being used or requested for both Hillview Crest and Kiriyama. Is that a site-based request, or is that something in addition to, let me back up. So each site will obviously have their own requirements and needs. So it's probably because it serves their need best. Does that mean that the other sites don't need a similar program, or do they have another one that they're using?
So in terms of Happy Numbers, you'll see the funding source for for Hillview Crest is Site Title I funds. During this past week, we were in the process of approving our learning loss plans from our school site based on individuals' needs. You're going to, in the very near future, see some additional requests, particularly for this product. It's been found by teachers at multiple elementary sites as a product to supplement our board adopted curriculum Bridges in a very effective way in distance learning. And so these are two of the school sites who are utilizing their site funds in order to procure these products. Should they be approved, you will be getting additional requests in the very near future from other elementary schools as well.
For the same product?
Correct.
Great. Thank you. I just wanted to understand, because we're always talking about, one program being implemented at one site. What does that leave with the other site? So I just want to make sure that either it's really needed by that site, or it's, they're doing a pilot one for the rest of the district. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, roll call, please.
Corr.
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Chima.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Nishihira.
Aye.
Velasco.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to 11.6. May I have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of licenses from Happy Numbers 2021 for Kiriyama Elementary School?
So moved.
Second.
Member Canlis and Member Chima. Roll call, please. I'm sorry, discussion. Roll call, please.
Corr.
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Chima.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Nishihira.
Aye.
Velasco.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to 11.7. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agreement between Easton Elementary School and Minoan Moon Publishing LLC for 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Member Canlis, Member Wong, discussion?
Yes. So similar, if I may, similar, I guess similar concern, not a concern, similar topic of my discussion. So each site, the way I'm trying to understand, and I talked with Dr. Thompson earlier too, but I think it might help if we all understand this, or maybe you guys do, but I'm trying to understand that each site is requesting their own programs that serve their site. That's how I understood it. And then if it works for them, and if there's a need elsewhere, that can get expanded to other sites. This particular one is obviously a very unique request. And the way I understood it in the past, the sites typically took control of their own general funds and, passed or got requests that needed for their site. And this is the first time we're seeing some of these come to the board level. So obviously grief services, any sort of, particular mental services that's asked and that's provided by this particular contract at Delane Easton, it's great. But I think the need is district-wide. So at what point do you consider this to be something that could be rolled out district-wide, or do you let each site decide if this is something they want? And obviously, if you look at the funding source, this is funded by the general funds from that particular site, ASB and the donations. So if it is something that can be expanded to other sites, how will other sites be able to afford this? Will I thought this would get rolled under our learning loss mitigation funds. But apparently this is something that each site has to fund for their particular sites. So if I can get just a little bit further understanding on how this is done and whether this is going to be something that can be rolled out to the entire district, because the need is there, and how will the funding play out here?
And Scott, I'll take it, and then I'm going to kick it over to you, I think. So, we have centralized support that we provide, and especially when it comes to mental health support, Scott's team is doing a lot of work with developing our multi-tiered systems of support. And within that structure, we will be providing consistent access to those types of resources across the district. In addition to that, those sites are engaging in their own, they have interest in their own programs that seem to fit the needs of their sites. And when that comes up, and this is that type of request. So occasionally a site will pick something that they want to try and works well for their site, where it will get scaled up after and become part of the bigger systematic approach. But this is, and I'll let Scott address it. And I think we also have if need be, but this is a site specific request that we are not planning at this point of scaling across the district. Scott, did I get that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And again, each school site, again, with its donation funds, each school site with its categorical funding, again, based on needs that are identified by the site and approved by their school site councils in terms of the appropriation of funds to be able to support that, or a site identified. And again, as Dr. Thompson spoke to, there are some centralized services that are provided district-wide, and there are some site-specific services or contracts, as the one being presented to you this evening, that are identified by site-specific need.
So if another site decides, or after this pilot, or after this service is rendered at Delane East, if another site feels that this is something that they would love to try it and give it a shot as well, so that funding will also come from their particular site allocations.
Correct.
Thank you.
So one more comment.
Go ahead, Member Chima.
So I think we do have the principals from all elementary schools collaboration sessions. I'm just wondering, because these requests, they are coming from different schools from different school sites for different programs, as is Member Sharon's intention. Is there any way if we can have a uniform approach to these services, or it's like too constraining their individual school side needs or something? That's, I think, we should have discussion maybe in the future, because there have had some concerns from parents that how our school districts, they are providing services equitably.
And I can again tackle that. We do provide services. A lot of the core core services are provided centrally, such as Goal 2 Strategic Action Plan. Part of that is our multi-tiered support system. That staff development, that training, those resources are going to all of our sites. But again, sites still need to have some discretion to be able to explore things on their own. That might be needs that either their parent-teacher council or teacher, may want to explore. And this is that example. I do want to point out, and Trustee Kaur was correct in this, that I think this might seem new to you, because in the past, a lot of these contracts and agreements were reached and they never made it to the board, but we changed that practice last year. And so you're seeing now every agreement we reach with a vendor coming to the board. So these things have been going on for a while, but now we're taking the proper step of bringing them to the board. But again, getting back to your point, we are providing consistent centralized services in almost every area. But that doesn't mean that school sites aren't going to be able to try something on their own or meet their own individual needs with their own site funds.
So I appreciate that information, and also I lost my thought because there was a phone call.
Okay.
Can I?
Oh yeah,
Can I-
Member Callis.
Linda, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
Member
ahead.
Callis, your hand is up.
Okay, Mr. Paisani, you mentioned about the centralized services, mental health services. You're talking about the cost program, the tier 1 to 3, and also what's being provided from the family services. Is that what you're talking about?
So for example, family service assistants, which are new for all of our school sites this year, would be an example of a centralized service that we are providing to all school sites. Services district-wide also coordinated with the Union City Family Center would be additional services. In terms of MTSS, professional development around universal design for learning, as well as academic, behavioral, and social emotional supports through MTSS are also examples of centralized services district-wide. Again, it is sort of this, this multi-layered approach in terms of be able to provide supports for all students, and at the same time for sites to be able to identify priorities within their individual context and then allocate resources to meet those needs as well.
So I
Thank you.
got my thought.
Okay, let me just finish my thought.
Sure.
So what Delaney Stin is doing is adding in addition to what's already there. So it's not, I know there's a concern about inequity, Ms. Chima, and that is my concern too. But there is a district-wide pathway on how to address the needs of students needing mental health services from tier 1, 2 to 3. And then this is an extra. But the question that's being asked right now is if there is a need for this extra during this time, because these are different times, how could the other schools afford it? Because I'm almost positive that the need this time is different from what we have during normal times. So that's where the equity question comes in.
Well, one of the things that I would like to note, just as a matter of governance, is this is a good meaty discussion, and I'm wondering if the best time to have this discussion is, during this contract, during specific contracts, or whether or not there's a better venue and or topic. Because this happens, I mean, like I think it's very, very important. I just want to know if this is really something that's best handled on a contract per contract basis, or if there is some other structure that whether it be behind a discussion item around a goal, like for one of the strategic action plan goals. The point here being, it sounds like our board or members of our board need a really clear understanding on how some projects are selected, what discretion the different sites have to ensure that that all the sites have an equitable opportunity to access those programs. So I'm not providing an opinion either way on this particular agenda item. I'm just wondering the best place and the best venue to have this conversation.
I think people are just asking for clarifications at this point.
Okay.
It really sounds like the question the board has is how are we funding schools? Are schools being funded equitably? Because we give schools money based on the number of students they have. In addition, Title I schools get an added allocation. Easton is not a Title I school, so they don't get that. And then, so we have funding sources, but they need to be allowed at the site level. That's why we have SPSAs to make their own decisions about how they're going to spend that money, and they're going to spend it differently. So they have equitable access from a funding perspective. There are schools like Hillview Crest that have a lot more Title I funds, and Easton has none. But Easton has probably, due to the size of their students and the demographics in there, they probably raise more ASB funds. So it's not perfect across the system, but the core services are equitably in terms of the funding. We fund those equitably, and then in addition, if the sites have students with more free and reduced lunch students, more English language, they get additional funding to offset those costs. So it sounds like that's really the question we're asking. But if we're questioning every contract on a contract by contract basis based around equity, whether it's equitable or not, that is not, I agree with President Nishihara, that's really not what it sounds like you're asking. Because if a site wants to do Yeah, anyway.
It sounds to me that if it's a matter of equitable funding, that's one thing. However, it seems like the process and the document in place to ensure that the equal access is within the SIPSAs, which are actually individually addressed at the site level. And so if any of those, if lack of access to a particular program or whatever is not available to a site, that is something that, if I understand, that the school sites need to identify that as being an issue, right? Like by the time it gets to this body, we assume that all of the sites have done their due diligence and have engaged with their parents and their teachers in the school site council and have determined that this is what they want. So it's not a matter of, we just want to make sure it's not a matter of the fact that they can't get access to it. It's just that that school site has opted for a different program or something like that. I think if I'm hearing the superintendent correct.
This is actually extra. So in addition to what we have.
On top
already.
of the, on top of.
So a lot of these questions are coming up because this is not something we are used to seeing. So that's why when we're seeing contracts that are specific for one site, it's good to understand where they're coming from.
Right. Great.
Oh, can I add?
Okay.
Yeah, I have gotten my thought back, which I lost previously. So to add to the comment, if we need the discussion here on this body, I think it's good that we have discussion so that our communities, they do understand that we are providing services equitably. The second thing is this process started with Superintendent Thompson. Actually, he brought it up, if I remember it correctly. So it was for the more transparency because some of the site funds, because of the same reason we are discussing, they were not spending equitably. So it's a good process, and I appreciate Superintendent Thompson to bring these contracts here so that we know what is happening in our individual schools. So thank you.
Okay. Great. Well, we have a motion and a second on the table. Looks like we're done with discussion. May I roll call, please?
Kaur.
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Chima.
Aye.
Wong. Wong. Nishihira.
Aye.
Blasco.
Aye.
Okay, let the record show that I believe I heard Member Wong say aye. So
His face, his mouth
that's
says
not
aye.
true. Okay, great. All right, then we will move on to 11.8. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agreement from Arbor Works to provide tree trimming and removal services at the ESC?
So moved.
Second.
Member Canlis, Member Chima, discussion? Roll call, please.
Kaur.
I have discussion.
Oh, okay, what's your discussion?
It's actually common for this 11.8 and 11.9, since we are going through this whole social movement and the pandemic. It's our responsibility to be having more close oversight. So for that purposes, I have asked the questions to our CBO previously in the daytime as well. So I was just wondering for these two items to make sure that we don't have these in-house services provided. I know, David Estrada, you are a professional engineer. So for these both services, inspection services, as well as the tree trimming, because we do have the maintenance department. So we don't have the capacity to handle these projects in-house. Just want to make sure.
So I can quickly respond to that. Both of these are actually under MOT or maintenance operations, not facilities. We do not have the specialized equipment for 11.8. And for 11.9, it's actually a requirement that we have a DSA certified inspector for a project.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Seeing no further discussion, roll call, please.
Kaur.
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Chima.
Aye.
Wong. Wong. Nishihira.
Aye.
Velasco.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, let the
Aye.
record show. Yep, let the record show that member Wong registered his vote aye. Okay, moving on to 11.9. May I have a motion and a second to approve the DSA inspection services agreement for the fencing projects at Ilion Veracruz Middle School and James Logan High School?
I move.
Second.
Member Chima and then member Canlis, discussion.
None.
Okay, seeing no discussion, roll call, please.
Kapoor.
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Chima.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Nishihira.
Aye.
Velasco.
Aye.
All right, moving on to consent agenda, area 12. May I have, are there any items that members would like to pull for separate vote? Okay, seeing none. May I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 12 dot, just a second. Hang on a second. It looks like, well, 12.3 to 12.12. Doesn't look like there's a 12.1.
Yeah,
One
the minutes are missing.
Just
The
a
minutes
moment.
from the
Hang on.
last two previous meetings are missing.
I think it's Lori probably had to pull. There might have been a problem where she pulled them at the last second there.
Yeah.
So.
Why don't we do this then? May I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 12.3 through 12.12?
So
move.
moved.
Wait.
Second.
Okay, so that was member Chima and member Canlis. Discussion.
On our agenda, they reflect from 12.1 to 12.10.
You know, and mine, President Nishihara, I refreshed mine and they came back. So I don't know what happened. It looks like.
Hang on a second.
Mine is,
I'm refreshing right now. Give me just a second and I'll get right back to the meeting. All right. 6. Okay, let's start that one over again. Okay, yeah, I just refreshed. All right, so now we didn't do anything, so this is good. All right, may I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 12.1 through 12.10?
So moved.
second.
Okay, so member Canlis and then member Chima. Discussion.
Comments.
Okay, comments. Go ahead.
Yeah, my questions with several of the items, they were addressed during the day with our CBO. Because there are architecture firms and the annual audit, so all those questions, they were answered.
Okay, so you've got nothing to add. Okay. All right, then there's a motion and a second on the table. Roll call, please.
Kapoor.
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Chima.
Aye.
Wong. Nishihira.
Aye.
Aye.
Velasco.
Aye.
Okay, let the record reflect that member Wong cast his vote as aye. All right. Skipping 13 because there were no items that were removed from consent. Moving on to section 14.1, assessment of governance procedures and protocols. Does anybody have anything from a governance standpoint they'd like to address? I would like actually to bring up one, and we can wait for another time to discuss it. But one thing that's not exactly clear is when do we read out when does it make sense? We should have a rule around when we read out resolutions and when we don't. Right now, it just seems like that today's was a good thing to do. But sometimes we don't really have like rules, and maybe we should bring that into our governance handbook about when we read resolutions and when we don't. Yes, member Chima.
So,
Member Chima.
It's my opinion that we should read the resolutions all the time, because if we don't read all the time, some people or some communities, they might feel that, you know, they are excluded or something, and they got discriminated or something like that. So also, I think it's good to have kind of awareness, because usually these resolutions are all about the awareness. So and appreciation, like in this case today. So I think we should take every opportunity we are availed of to appreciate maybe the staff, the community, teachers, students, whenever. So I am all for reading the resolutions myself.
Okay, I'm going to bring that up as a topic for our next governance study, so we could explore that a little bit deeper, because I think that's a great thing to call out. Any other points that regarding governance?
We're talking about resolution, we're talking about awareness and appreciation. Are we putting this on the next agenda, the Filipino American History Month? I know we've had it in the October month in the past. Did we skip that one this time, or is it going to be on the next agenda?
No, this is the.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
No, that concludes my comment. I mean, we're talking about resolutions. I didn't see one this time around.
Yeah, I think it's not this meeting, but I think there'll be one coming up, I think. All right.
And last year in August, we at the request of the community, we had added the Muslim American History Month or Appreciation Month last year in August. I did not see it, and I didn't get a chance to bring it up. So I think let's make sure that those are rolled in as appropriately. So we want to make sure that they're included. And as far as reading, I think we can discuss further. But there's no harm done in reading. I think we always learn some data points, something new.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Gore, for bringing that up. Thank you.
We'll look at our calendar. We have a calendar of all the resolutions.
Yeah, usually it's, it rolls over every month, but I did see that in August the other one had fallen off. So I just want to make sure that we don't drop this one off. Since we still have another meeting in October, we can obviously add it.
Yeah, and I don't think, I think that my point was not to read or to not read. It was more about we should have like a rules-based way of deciding whether or not we do it or not, because the member team is
side. It was something that I had meant to bring it up, because it's something that one of those things that I missed. I mean, we certainly added a resolution, which was great, and we usually don't see a resolution around community or California Week of School Administration. So I just don't want to add one, drop off another. Obviously, I think it's coming up, so I'm gonna give us the benefit of the doubt that it's going to be on the next board agenda.
Yep. And then the other kind of piece of governance that we should probably cover at some point is kind of the rules and protocols for how, starting this year, we started adding the new like the rule is that new contracts are in action items, which is what we did today. We talked about it. And then all contract renewals get put into consent. That's how we've decided to do it as a governance team. Now what I noticed today is that we got into a lot of the discussion of, on each individual contract, and for the team, is that something that we want to continue, or do we want to just kind of have an agreement that if we have questions like that, we should decide what the right venue is for having those conversations.
Well, my 2 cents, if we're approving an individual item, I think we have the right to hold a discussion on those individual items, whether we're repeating the discussion. So in my case, when we talked about the happy numbers being at Kiriyama and Hillview Crest, they were 2 separate items, but I kind of, rolled my discussion or my comments into one. But I think as far as in my opinion, members should be able to ask a question on each individual item, because we are at the end of the day approving and held accountable to every single action item contract that we approve. Whether it's a contract or another item, it's an action item. So we should ask more questions on those action items.
And in addition to that, even when we clarify and call the superintendent about our questions. It's important for the public too, to hear those questions again, so that they too, I'm sure they have questions too. And sometimes our questions are not just for us personally, but also for the public to know what that is all about. So I think we should continue those questions.
And that is truly the purpose of having action and consent. Action is for items that when the superintendent and the board president are going through the agenda and realize there may be questions about it or they're new items, those should be in action where you can have those discussions. Ideally, there's nothing in consent that would require it to be pulled because there's routine in nature. That's the whole goal of setting up the board agenda that way.
So my comment in this, like Trustee Canlis has mentioned and Superintendent Thompson has mentioned, that there is a reason that some of the items, they are under the action agenda item and others are for the information and others for the consent. We designed, some of the requirements are by law that we need to have a separate item for the action. And some of them we have enacted, like some approvals of the contracts from individual side. We decided as a board, with Dr. Thompson, he proposed it, we decided to do it this way, which is good. I think one of the jobs of being a school board member is to educate the public that how we make our decisions, why we do the things that we do. So it's always good to have discussion. I know it's an investment of our time, but I don't mind having the discussions here.
Great. Well, it looks like this was a good discussion. I think that we're all aligned. It seems like the practice that we've been doing of new contracts being in action and we'll have discussions, I think is something that the board will continue. So thank you for this for the discussion. Any other items related to governance from today? Okay. Then we will move to board consensus. So board member requests of staff. Does anybody here have any requests of staff? Okay. I alluded to this in my comments. I would, if it's the pleasure of the board, I would like to have the staff investigate either the feasibility or next steps or risks or costs. What is the impact to the staff regarding potentially opening up our facilities to a farmer's market at the Dakota school site, or maybe at another site somewhere in that neighborhood?
Can
So
I
I
ask
have something.
questions? Go ahead. I have a lot of questions, so go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, so one thing is right next to our Dakota school, there is I forgot the name of that nonprofit. They distribute the food, vegetables, fruits, and there's a thrift store attached to it. So there are already services available in that side. So I would like to know more about how we explore. So Dr. Thompson can let us know his thoughts as well.
Okay. Member, I'm sorry, Superintendent Thompson.
Yeah, I mean, this is is there a group that puts these on? Is this a city-run thing? Is this just a bunch of farmers that want to put something together?
I think that there's a couple things here. Number one, I just want to understand what right now there's no this would not be our staff putting it on. Like it would not be our staff, dealing with the farmers market. There was just some conversations about like what it would cost, or sorry, what it would take to open up the site on like a, I don't know, I'm pulling this out of thin air, like a Saturday morning to have a farmer's market in the neighborhood. This is not like this. It would have no staff. I'm not asking any staff impact on running the program for sure. This is just about like maybe opening up a parking lot to maybe have vendors come in and maybe sell vegetables.
Well, this is why I was getting into those questions, because we have a facilities use process. Whatever entity would want to do it would have to go through the facilities use request process.
Okay.
And that dictates everything. So including liability and all of that.
Yeah.
So that's
Also,
what to do. There's really no question about it. Whoever wants to do it, just go through the facilities use process.
Right.
And that's how they can do it.
Yeah,
So-
and then it's probably through the city, and the process also include all the fees for custodial and facilities use and so on.
Okay,
So
so what I'll do
just
is
for just for your information, Lance and the other board members, there used to be a farmer's market in the BART parking lot.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I don't know what happened to that, or if.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you can connect that.
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that farmer's market, and there's a lot of reasons why maybe it didn't take off. It might have been because it was too far away from where people lived. So I don't really know. So it may go somewhere, it may not go somewhere. But what I'm hearing is there's no work to be done here because there's already process in place. And so Superintendent Thompson, what I will do is I will connect with you offline to understand that process a little bit more, so I can point the people who are interested in that direction.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. So no work for staff there. All right. Anything else?
Good job.
All right. Seeing no further actions, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.